concern has been whether or not, I think we have to ask a couple questions here. First off, what sort of permitting process was in place before this happened? It appears as if there really wasn't any DEQ permitting. There wasn't a Detroit permit. Those are being requested right now. I think we have to say that before this kind of activity is engaged in, there should be a permitting process that brings in community involvement as well before you see the kind of piles of Petcoke that are behind me. The other issue is whether or not these are being stored properly. If you look at other states where Petcoke is a byproduct, they are actually covered. These are not covered. As you can see behind me, these are open. Concerns that we got from a letter from the DEQ is what happens to the dust when you have wind, dust from this material, which is very high in sulfur, very high in a variety of metals, so it gets blown around. And of course, my main concern is with it on the edge of the Detroit River as well. When you have a rain event like we had today, where is that material going as the water then washes it down? The letter that we sent for the DEQ, they mentioned that there was a storm drain runoff, but they did not know where that drain runoff went. I assume being close to the river, it probably goes into the river and goes into the Great Lakes. So this is certainly a major concern for the community, the surrounding residents, and I have with me today a number of residents who are going to speak to these piles and what it means for their community. I think we need to have some questions answered as to a permitting process and whether or not these Petcoke piles need to be stored differently. We should learn from other states. For in fact, Delaware, where this is being accumulated in Delaware, they require it all internal. It's completely covered to protect the surrounding environment. That's not happening here. I'm going to be introducing legislation this next week when we get back into Congress to have a complete health study of Petcoke, because this is going to be a problem not just for us here in the city of Detroit. This is going to be a problem all across the country, particularly as tar sands oil comes from Alberta, and a large amount of the byproduct of that tar sands is the Petcoke that we see behind us. We better understand the health impacts of it. We better understand how we store this properly and understand the damage that it can do to the environment, not just in the storage, but also when you burn this Petcoke and it gets into the air and the CO2 and the impact that it has on climate change as well. We have to remember, once again, this is dirtier than the dirtiest coal, and it is being burnt in power plants.